In the quiet corners of basketball history, there are architects, men who built dynasties not with their hands, but with their minds. Tonight, we explore four legends who transformed the game from the sidelines. In the quiet town of Deer Lodge, Montana, a boy was born on September 17, 1945. His name was Philip Douglas Jackson, and his childhood was anything but ordinary. His parents were Pentecostal ministers, strict and devout, who filled their home with rules and religious devotion. For young Phil, basketball became something more than a game. It became freedom. He grew tall and lean, finding his way to the University of North Dakota, where the court offered him an escape from the rigid structure of his upbringing. He played with passion, with intelligence, with a desire to prove himself. And in 1967, he was drafted by the New York Knicks in the second round, the 17th pick overall. For 12 seasons, Phil Jackson wore the blue and orange, playing as a forward who understood the game's deeper rhythms. He was part of something special in New York. In 1970, the Knicks won the championship. Phil was 24 years old, a role player on a team led by Willis Reed and Walt Frazier. 3 years later, in 1973, he won again. 2 rings as a player, 2 moments of glory. But when his playing career ended in 1980, the basketball world wasn't sure what to do with Phil Jackson. He was different. His hair was long. His interests wandered into Eastern philosophy, Native American spirituality, counterculture ideas that made conservative NBA owners nervous. He couldn't find work in the league, so he went to the Continental Basketball Association, coaching the Albany Patroons in upstate New York. It was a step down, a humbling experience, but Phil Jackson won a championship there in 1984. Still, the NBA didn't call.
Finally, in 1987, he got his chance. The Chicago Bulls hired him as an assistant coach under Doug Collins. The team had a young superstar named Michael Jordan, the most talented player anyone had ever seen. But the Bulls couldn't win championships. Jordan scored and scored and scored. But championships require more than one man's brilliance. Phil watched. He learned. And he met a man named Tex Winter, an assistant coach who had developed something called the triangle offense. It was a system built on spacing, on reading defenses, on 5 players moving as one. It required sacrifice. It required the best player in the world to trust his teammates, to give up some of his shots, to believe in something bigger than himself. In 1989, the Bulls made a change. Doug Collins was let go, and on July 10th of that year, Phil Jackson was named head coach. He was 43 years old. He had never been a head coach in the NBA, and he had to convince Michael Jordan to change everything about how he played basketball.
Jordan resisted at first. He had been the league's leading scorer for 3 consecutive seasons. Why should he pass the ball more? Why should he trust Scottie Pippen and John Paxson and Bill Cartwright with the game on the line? But Phil Jackson was patient. He didn't demand, he guided. He used psychology, philosophy, and a calm persistence that slowly won Jordan over. The Bulls won 55 games in Phil's first season as coach. They lost in the conference finals to the Detroit Pistons, the physical, bruising bad boys who had beaten them 3 years in a row. But Phil knew something was building. The triangle offense was taking root. The team was learning to trust each other. The next season, 1990 to 1991, everything changed. The Bulls won 61 games. They swept the Pistons in 4 straight games in the conference finals, a moment of pure catharsis after years of playoff heartbreak. And then they faced Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. The Lakers were basketball royalty. They had won 5 championships in the 1980s. Magic was a legend, a point guard who had defined an entire era. But the Bulls won in 5 games. Michael Jordan averaged 31 points, 11 assists. The triangle offense had worked. Phil Jackson, in just his second season as head coach, had won his first championship. The Bulls won again in 1992 and again in 1993. 3 straight championships. The first three-peat since the Boston Celtics won 8 straight titles, ending in 1966. Phil Jackson had done something remarkable. He had taken the greatest individual talent in basketball history and convinced him that greatness required partnership.
Then, tragedy struck. Michael Jordan's father was murdered in July 1993. Jordan, grief-stricken, retired from basketball in October to pursue professional baseball. The dynasty seemed over. Phil Jackson coached the Bulls for 2 more seasons without Jordan. They were good, but not champions. But in March 1995, Jordan returned. 2 words: "I'm back." And in 1995 to 1996, the Bulls achieved something that seemed impossible. They won 72 games in the regular season, the most in NBA history. They lost only 10 games all year. Phil Jackson guided them with a steady hand, and when the playoffs came, they won the championship again. They won in 1997, they won in 1998, another three-peat, 6 championships in 8 years. Phil Jackson had coached 193 playoff games with the Bulls and won 111 of them. His winning percentage was staggering. His calm demeanor, his ability to manage egos, his trust in a system, all of it had created a dynasty that might never be replicated. After the 1998 championship, the Bulls broke up. Phil Jackson took a year off, resting, reflecting. But in June 1999, the Los Angeles Lakers called. They had 2 superstars, Shaquille O'Neal, a dominant center, and Kobe Bryant, a young guard who idolized Michael Jordan. They had immense talent, but couldn't win together. They needed someone who understood how to blend brilliance into team success.
Phil Jackson signed a 5-year contract. He installed the triangle offense. Shaq and Kobe fought and argued and competed with each other, but Phil managed them with the same patient wisdom he'd used with Jordan. In his first season in Los Angeles, the Lakers won 67 games and the championship. They beat the Indiana Pacers in 6 games in the finals. The next season, 2000 to 2001, they swept through the playoffs with a 15-1 record, the most dominant playoff run in modern history. They beat the Philadelphia 76ers in the finals in 5 games. The following year, 2001 to 2002, they three-peated again, sweeping the New Jersey Nets in the finals. Phil Jackson had now won 9 championships as a head coach. 9. More than any coach in NBA history. He had done it with 2 different franchises, with 2 different generational superstars. But the Shaq and Kobe partnership eventually fractured. The Lakers lost in the 2004 finals to the Detroit Pistons. That summer, Shaq was traded to Miami. Phil Jackson resigned. For a year, he stayed away, but in June 2005, the Lakers asked him to return. Kobe Bryant, now the team's sole superstar, needed guidance. Phil came back. For 5 more seasons, he coached Kobe through a new chapter. The triangle offense remained. The championships took longer to arrive, but in 2009, the Lakers won again, defeating the Orlando Magic in 5 games. The next season, 2009 to 2010, they repeated, beating the Boston Celtics in 7 games in an epic, physical finals. Phil Jackson had won his 11th championship as a head coach. 11. No other coach in NBA history had more than 9. After that season, at age 64, Phil Jackson retired for good. He finished with 1,155 regular season wins. His winning percentage of .704 was the highest among all coaches with at least 400 games. He won 229 playoff games, more than any coach ever. He was named Coach of the Year once in 1996. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2007. Phil Jackson's legacy isn't just in the numbers. It's in the way he saw basketball as something more than a game. He burned sage before games to cleanse negative energy. He assigned books to players, The Great Gatsby to Michael Jordan, Siddhartha to Kobe Bryant. He used meditation and mindfulness decades before they became fashionable. He believed that true success came from inner peace, from players understanding themselves and each other. He called himself the Zen Master, but really, he was just a man who understood that greatness requires surrender. Surrender of ego. Surrender of the need to control everything. Surrender to the flow of the game, to the wisdom of the team, to the beauty of five people moving as one.
And in that surrender, Phil Jackson found something rare, sustained, undeniable, legendary success. On January 28, 1949, in East Chicago, Indiana, a boy named Gregg Charles Popovich entered the world. His father was Serbian, his mother Croatian, and from them he inherited a European sensibility, a love of wine and culture and conversation that would later define him. But first, there was basketball. Gregg Popovich went to the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, a place where discipline was not optional. He played point guard for the Falcons, a smart, scrappy player who understood the game better than he could dominate it physically. By his senior year, he was team captain and the leading scorer. He graduated in 1970 with a degree in Soviet studies, fluent in Russian, ready to serve his country. For 5 years, he was an Air Force officer. He toured Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, experiencing a world few Americans saw. In 1972, he was captain of the Armed Forces basketball team, leading them to an amateur athletic union championship. But basketball kept calling him back. In 1973, he returned to the Air Force Academy as an assistant coach. 6 years later, he left the military and became the head coach at Pomona Pitzer, a small Division III college in California. For 9 seasons, he coached there, winning games, teaching young players, building a reputation as a teacher of the game. But he wanted more.
In 1988, he got his chance. Larry Brown hired him as an assistant with the San Antonio Spurs. Popovich was 39 years old, finally in the NBA. But after only 2 seasons, Brown left, and the new head coach didn't want Popovich on staff. He was let go. Another setback. He joined Don Nelson's staff with the Golden State Warriors as an assistant. But it wasn't the same. He was in his 40s, wondering if he'd ever have real influence in the NBA. Then, in 1994, the Spurs called again. Not for a coaching position, but for a front office role. They wanted him to be their general manager. Popovich took the job. For 2 years, he watched the team from above, making personnel decisions, learning the business side of basketball. But in December 1996, 18 games into the season, he made the most controversial decision of his career. The Spurs had started 3-15. The coach, Bob Hill, had won 59 games the previous season, but couldn't get the team going. Popovich, as general manager, fired Hill, and then he named himself head coach. The criticism was immediate. How could a general manager fire a coach and take the job himself? Was this about winning or about Popovich's ego? The Spurs finished the season with a record of 20 wins and 62 losses, the worst in franchise history.
Their star center, David Robinson, had been injured for most of the season. Everything seemed broken.
But something unexpected happened. That terrible record gave the Spurs the best chance at the #1 pick in the 1997 NBA draft. And with that pick, they selected Tim Duncan, a power forward from Wake Forest University who played with quiet excellence and fundamental perfection. David Robinson returned healthy. Tim Duncan arrived. And suddenly, the Spurs had two of the best big men in basketball. They called them the Twin Towers. Popovich's gamble had paid off in the most unlikely way. In 1997 to 1998 season, they won 56 games. In the lockout-shortened 1998 to 1999 season, they went 37-13, then 15-2 in the playoffs. In the finals, they faced the New York Knicks, an 8th seed that had improbably made it through the Eastern Conference. The Spurs won in 5 games. Popovich, the coach who had hired himself, who had suffered through a 20-win season, was now an NBA champion. It had taken 3 years, 3 patient, intentional years. But Popovich wasn't satisfied. He wanted to build something lasting. Over the next decade, the Spurs became the model franchise in professional basketball. They drafted Tony Parker, a young French point guard, in 2001. They signed Manu Ginobili, an Argentine guard who had been dominating European basketball, in 2002. With Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, they had a core that would last for nearly 2 decades.
In 2003, the Spurs won their second championship, defeating the New Jersey Nets in 6 games. Popovich was named Coach of the Year for the first time. 2 years later, in 2005, they won again, this time against the Detroit Pistons in 7 games. In Game 7, Tim Duncan had 20 points and 14 rebounds, and the Spurs won by 9 points in front of their home crowd. In 2007, they swept LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals. It was their 4th championship in 9 years, and Popovich had established himself as one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. He did it without flash, without drama, just fundamentals, teamwork, international scouting, and a culture that valued intelligence over athleticism. But in 2013, the Spurs suffered heartbreak. They played the Miami Heat in the finals, and in Game 6, with the Spurs leading by 5 points with 28 seconds left, they were seconds away from the championship. But Ray Allen hit a 3-pointer. The game went to overtime. The Heat won. They won Game 7, too, and the Spurs were left with one of the most painful losses in finals history. Popovich could have let that break his team. Instead, he used it. The next season, 2013 to 2014, the Spurs played the most beautiful basketball anyone had ever seen. The ball moved like water, flowing from player to player, 5 passes in 7 seconds, everyone touching it, no one holding it. They met the Heat again in the finals. This time, there was no heartbreak. The Spurs won in 5 games, dominating Miami with a style of play so aesthetically perfect that even Heat fans found themselves in awe. Popovich won his 3rd Coach of the Year award. Tim Duncan, at age 38, won his 5th championship. It was the perfect ending to an era.
But Popovich kept going. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili eventually retired. Tim Duncan retired in 2016 after 19 seasons, all with the Spurs, all coached by Popovich. A new star emerged, Kawhi Leonard, a quiet, methodical forward who won Finals MVP in 2014 at age 22. The Spurs reached the playoffs 22 consecutive seasons under Popovich, from 1997 to 2019. 22 straight years.
It remains the longest streak in NBA history, breaking the record held by the Philadelphia 76ers and Syracuse Nationals. On February 9, 2015, Popovich became the 9th coach in NBA history to reach 1,000 career wins when the Spurs beat the Indiana Pacers. In 2021, Popovich took a break from the Spurs to coach Team USA at the Tokyo Olympics. The team struggled early, losing exhibition games, facing criticism, but Popovich steadied them, and Team USA won the gold medal, defeating France in the final. Back with the Spurs, the championship years were behind them, but Popovich kept coaching. He became the all-time leader in regular season wins, passing Don Nelson's record of 1,335. He kept teaching, kept developing young players, kept building the culture that had made San Antonio special for nearly 3 decades.
On November 2, 2024, Popovich suffered a mild stroke. The Spurs announced he would miss time. Mitch Johnson, an assistant coach, took over on an interim basis. The basketball world worried. Popovich was 75 years old. On May 2, 2025, the announcement came. Gregg Popovich was stepping down as head coach of the San Antonio Spurs after 29 seasons. He would remain with the organization as an advisor, but his time on the bench was over. He finished with 1,390 wins, more than any coach in NBA history. 5 championships, 3 Coach of the Year awards, 170 playoff wins, 29 years with one franchise. Popovich's legacy is measured not just in wins, but in the way he changed how basketball is played and understood. He proved that international players could not only compete, but thrive in the NBA. He showed that ball movement and teamwork could defeat isolation and star power. He demanded discipline, but created a family atmosphere where players felt valued and respected. He was known for his gruff exterior, his curt answers to reporters, his impatience with stupidity. But those who knew him saw something else, a man who cared deeply about his players, who attended their weddings, who checked on them years after they retired, who used basketball as a vehicle to teach about life, about responsibility, about being a good person in a complicated world.
Gregg Popovich was a professor who happened to coach basketball, and in the quiet consistency of his excellence, he taught us all what greatness really looks like. On September 20th, 1917, in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, New York, a boy was born to Russian Jewish immigrants. His father, Hyman Auerbach, owned a small delicatessen. His mother, Marie, kept the home. They named their son Arnold Jacob Auerbach, but the world would come to know him by a different name, Red. He got the nickname as a child for the color of his hair, bright and unmistakable. He grew up playing basketball on the streets of Brooklyn, where the game was fast and physical and unforgiving. If you couldn't compete, you didn't play. Red competed. He went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where he played basketball under coach Bill Reinhart. Reinhart taught a running game, an up-tempo style that emphasized speed and constant movement. Red absorbed everything. When he graduated, he became a high school coach at St. Albans Preparatory School in Washington. He was 23 years old. Then came World War II. From 1943 to 1946, Red served in the U.S. Navy, coaching basketball teams on military bases. When the war ended, professional basketball was just beginning to form. The Basketball Association of America was founded in 1946, and Red Auerbach was hired to coach the Washington Capitals.
In his first season, the Capitals won 49 games and lost 11, the best record in the league. Red was 29 years old, already a winner. But after 3 seasons, a personality clash with the owner led to his departure. He coached the Tri-Cities Blackhawks for 1 season, then found himself out of work. In 1950, Walter Brown, the owner of the Boston Celtics, offered him a job. The Celtics were terrible. They had won 22 games the previous season, the worst record in the league. Boston fans didn't care much about professional basketball. The team was losing money, but Red saw potential. For 6 years, Red built the team. He drafted well, he traded cleverly, he installed his fast-paced offense and demanded relentless defense. The Celtics won games, made the playoffs, but they couldn't win a championship. They lost in the finals in 1957. They were close, but not close enough. Everything changed in the 1956 draft. Red wanted Bill Russell, a 6'9" center from the University of San Francisco who had won back-to-back NCAA championships and an Olympic gold medal. Russell wasn't a scorer, but he was the greatest defensive player anyone had ever seen. He could block shots, grab rebounds, and ignite the fast break that Red wanted to run.
The problem was that Russell was going to be drafted 2nd overall by the St. Louis Hawks. But Red made a deal. He traded 2 players, Ed McCauley and Cliff Hagan, to St. Louis in exchange for their pick. The Hawks agreed, and Red drafted Bill Russell. In Russell's first season, 1956-57, the Celtics won the championship, defeating the Hawks in 7 games in the finals. It was Red's first title as a coach. He was 39 years old. He had been coaching in the NBA for 11 seasons. Finally, after all the close calls, after all the playoff disappointments, the Celtics were champions. The next season, they lost to the Hawks in the finals. Russell injured his ankle in Game 3, and the Celtics fell in 6 games. But that would be their only finals loss for the next decade. Starting in 1959, the Celtics won 8 consecutive NBA championships. 8 in a row! It remains the longest championship streak in North American professional sports history. The Yankees won 5 straight World Series from 1949 to 1953. The Canadians won 5 straight Stanley Cups from 1956 to 1960. But no one in any sport has matched the Celtics' 8 straight titles. Red didn't do it with the league's leading scorer. He never had the highest-paid player. What he had was a system. He had Bill Russell dominating the paint, grabbing every rebound, blocking every shot. He had Bob Cousy running the fast break with dazzling passes. He had Sam Jones and John Havlicek scoring when needed. He had Frank Ramsey coming off the bench as the league's first true 6th man, a role Red invented. Red understood something that other coaches didn't. Basketball was not about individual brilliance. It was about 5 players working together, each one accepting their role, each one sacrificing for the team. He coached stars who could have scored 30 points a game, but chose to score 15 because that's what the team needed. He created a culture where egos were checked at the door, and winning was the only thing that mattered. He was also a pioneer in breaking down racial barriers. In 1950, Red drafted Chuck Cooper from Duquesne University, making him the first African-American player drafted by an NBA team. When other owners questioned the pick, Red famously replied, "I don't give a damn if he's striped or polka dot or plaid. Boston takes Chuck Cooper of Duquesne." Cooper played 4 seasons in the NBA, opening the door for countless black players who followed. In 1964, Red sent out the first all-black starting lineup in NBA history: Bill Russell,
Willie Knowles, Tom Sanders, Sam Jones, and Casey Jones. It was a statement, intentional or not, that talent and character mattered more than skin color. That same year, Red was named Coach of the Year, the only time he received the award during his coaching career. But Red was not an easy man to play for. He was demanding, loud, and abrasive. He screamed at referees and was ejected from games more than any coach of his era. He accumulated more fines than any coach in league history. He would go nose to nose with players, challenging them, pushing them, never letting them settle for anything less than their best. Some players hated him, others came to respect him, but they all won under him.
Red was also a master of psychological warfare. He would predict victories before big games, putting pressure on opponents. He would talk trash to opposing players and coaches, getting into their heads. And when the game was decided, when the Celtics had built an insurmountable lead, Red would light a cigar on the bench. It became his signature move, a symbol of victory, a taunt to the other team. Celtics fans loved it, opponents despised it. Red didn't care. In 1966, after winning his 9th championship in 10 years, Red Auerbach retired as head coach. He was 48 years old. He had coached 938 wins and 479 losses, a winning percentage of .662. He had won 9 championships, the most of any coach at that time. But even more remarkably, he had changed the way basketball was played, proving that teamwork and defense could dominate an era. After retiring, Red made one final historic decision. He named Bill Russell as his successor, making Russell the first African-American head coach in NBA history. It was 1966, a time when racial tensions were high across America. The move was controversial in some circles, celebrated in others. But for Red, it was simple. Russell was the best person for the job. Red stayed with the Celtics as general manager and later as president. In those roles, he won 7 more championships in 1968, 69, 74, 76, 81, 84, and 86. 16 total championships in 29 years. No one in basketball history has been as successful for as long.
He continued working with the Celtics into his 80s, a constant presence in the organization, a living link to the dynasty he built. On October 28, 2006, Red Auerbach passed away at the age of 89 due to a heart attack. The basketball world mourned. The Celtics retired his number, even though he never played for them. The NBA renamed the Coach of the Year award the Red Auerbach Trophy in his honor. Red Auerbach's legacy is not just in the banners that hang in Boston's arena. It's in the way he saw the game as something bigger than individual glory. He understood that championships are built on sacrifice, on players accepting roles, on defense and hustle and heart. He understood that greatness requires everyone to buy in, to trust each other, to believe in something larger than themselves. And when the game was won, when victory was certain, Red would sit on the bench and light his cigar, the smoke rising into the arena, a symbol of dominance, of legacy, of a dynasty that will never be forgotten. On March 20, 1945, in Rome, New York, a boy was born who would grow up to embody the glamour, intensity, and winning tradition of professional basketball. His name was Patrick James Riley,
and from the beginning, he was surrounded by greatness. He grew up in Schenectady, New York, the son of a minor league baseball player who taught him about competition, about winning, about never settling for second place. Pat excelled at both baseball and basketball in high school, but it was on the basketball court that he truly shined. He was recruited by the University of Kentucky to play for the legendary coach Adolph Rupp, one of the most successful and demanding coaches in college basketball history.
In 1966, Pat Riley's Kentucky Wildcats reached the NCAA championship game. They faced Texas Western, a team starting 5 African-American players in an era when most college teams were still predominantly white. The game became a cultural milestone. Texas Western won 72-65, and though Kentucky lost, Pat Riley had played on one of the most significant stages in basketball history. In 1967, Riley was drafted by both the San Diego Rockets in the NBA and the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. He chose basketball, beginning his professional career with the Rockets. But his playing career was unremarkable. He was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers in 1970, where he became a role player on a team led by Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West. In 1972, the Lakers won the NBA championship, defeating the New York Knicks in 5 games. Riley was on the roster, but he averaged only 3 points per game. He was a bench player, a spare part on a championship team. He played for 9 seasons total, never averaging more than 9 points per game, never making an all-star team. When he retired in 1976 at age 31, few people expected to hear from Pat Riley again. But Riley stayed close to the game. In 1977, he became a broadcaster for the Lakers, working alongside the legendary Chick Hearn. He called games for 3 seasons, learning to see basketball from a different angle, understanding strategy and preparation in ways he never had as a player. And in 1979, the Lakers hired him as an assistant coach under Paul Westhead.
That season, the Lakers drafted a 6'9" point guard named Magic Johnson. With Magic and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers won the championship in 1980, and Riley earned his 2nd championship ring, this time as an assistant coach. Everything seemed stable. But then, 6 games into the 1981 season, everything changed. Magic Johnson and Paul Westhead clashed over playing style. Magic wanted a faster, more free-flowing offense. Westhead wanted more structure. The conflict reached a breaking point, and owner Jerry Buss fired Westhead in November. The decision was controversial, sudden, and created chaos within the organization. At a hastily called press conference, Buss initially announced that Jerry West would become the head coach. But West, uncomfortable with the circumstances, declined the job. So Buss turned to his assistant, Pat Riley, and named him interim head coach. Riley was 36 years old. He had never been a head coach at any level, and now he was in charge of a team with championship expectations, internal turmoil, and intense media scrutiny. Riley could have collapsed under the pressure. Instead, he thrived. The Lakers finished the season strong, winning 50 of their final 71 games. In the playoffs, they went 12-2, dominating their way to the finals. There, they faced the Philadelphia 76ers, led by Julius Erving and Moses Malone. The Lakers won in 6 games. Pat Riley, in his first season as head coach, was an NBA champion.
The success continued. Over the next 8 seasons, Riley coached the Lakers to 4 championships and 7 finals appearances. The team became known as Showtime, a fast-paced, entertaining style of basketball that filled the Forum in Inglewood with celebrities, excitement, and championships. Magic Johnson ran the fast break.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scored with his unstoppable skyhook. James Worthy finished on the wing. Byron Scott hit three-pointers. It was basketball as art, and Pat Riley was the artist. But Riley was more than just a showman. He was a brilliant tactician. He developed an innovative defensive scheme called the 1-3-1 half-court trap that confused opponents and created turnovers. He managed egos, keeping Magic and Kareem happy, keeping role players engaged, keeping everyone focused on winning. And he looked the part: slicked back hair, designer suits, a Hollywood presence that matched the glamour of Los Angeles in the 1980s. The Lakers lost to the Philadelphia 76ers in 1983, swept in 4 games. It was a humiliating defeat, and Riley used it as motivation. The next season, the Lakers reached the finals again, this time facing their greatest rival, the Boston Celtics. The series went 7 games, played in the oppressive heat of the old Boston Garden, and the Celtics won. Riley was devastated. 2 finals losses in a row. But in 1985, the Lakers got revenge. They beat the Celtics in 6 games, winning the championship at Boston Garden, the first time a visiting team had won a title there. Riley wept after the victory, the emotion of years of rivalry and competition pouring out. He had beaten Red Auerbach Celtics on their home floor. It was the pinnacle of his coaching career to that point.
In 1987, the Lakers won again, defeating the Celtics in 6 games. After the championship parade, Riley made a bold declaration at a public rally. The Lakers would repeat as champions. It was an unprecedented guarantee, putting immense pressure on himself and the team. But Riley believed in what he had built. He even trademarked the term three-peat, planning for a future where the Lakers would win 3 straight titles. The Lakers delivered. In 1988, they defeated the Detroit Pistons in 7 games to win back-to-back championships, the first team to repeat since the Celtics in 1968 and 69. Riley had fulfilled his guarantee. He was named Coach of the Year, the first time he received the award. He had 4 championships in 8 seasons. He was 43 years old and at the height of his profession. But the next season, everything fell apart. The Lakers, older and worn down from years of finals appearances, were swept by the Detroit Pistons in the 1989 finals. Magic Johnson was battling injuries. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retired after the season. The Showtime era was over. Riley coached 1 more season in Los Angeles, winning 53 games but losing in the conference semifinals. And then, suddenly, he resigned. He needed a break. For 1 year, Riley worked as an NBA commentator for NBC, watching from a distance, recharging. But in June 1991, he couldn't stay away. The New York Knicks hired him as head coach, and Riley walked into a completely different situation. The Knicks were physical, defensive, built around Patrick Ewing and a bruising style of play that was the opposite of Showtime. Riley adapted. Under Riley, the Knicks became one of the toughest, most feared teams in the league. They won 51 games in his first season, then 60 in his second. In 1993, Riley won his second Coach of the Year award, becoming the first coach to win the award with 2 different teams. The Knicks reached the finals in 1994, facing the Houston Rockets. The series went 7 games, and the Knicks lost. Riley had been to the finals 9 times and won 4. But this loss stung differently. The Knicks were so close. Riley stayed in New York for 1 more season. Then in September 1995, he made another move. The Miami Heat hired him as head coach and president, giving him complete control over basketball operations. It was a fresh start in a young franchise that had never won a championship. Riley built the Heat in his image,
tough, disciplined, defensive-minded. In his second season in Miami, 1996 to 97, the Heat won 61 games and Riley won his third Coach of the Year award. He became the first and only coach to win the award with 3 different teams. The Heat became contenders, reaching the conference finals in 1997, but they couldn't break through to the finals.
For years, Riley coached the Heat with intensity and precision. He drafted well. He traded intelligently. But the championship remained elusive. In 2003, after 8 seasons on the bench, Riley stepped away from coaching to focus solely on his role as president. He hired Stan Van Gundy as head coach and began building the roster from the front office. Then, in December 2005, with the Heat struggling at 11 wins and 10 losses, Riley made a decision. He fired Van Gundy and returned to the bench himself. It was a controversial move, but Riley believed the team needed him. The Heat had Shaquille O'Neal, now 33 years old and in the twilight of his career, and a young star named Dwayne Wade, who was blossoming into one of the league's best players. Riley pushed them hard. He drove them through practices. He demanded perfection. And in the 2006 playoffs, everything came together. The Heat defeated the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games in the finals, with Dwayne Wade averaging 34 points per game in the series. Pat Riley had won his 5th championship as head coach, this time with a 3rd franchise. He was 61 years old, and he had proven once again that he could adapt, rebuild, and win anywhere.
Riley coached the Heat for 2 more seasons, then stepped away from the bench again in 2008 to focus on his executive role. But his impact on the franchise was far from over. In 2010, as team president, Riley orchestrated one of the most significant moments in NBA history. He convinced LeBron James, the best player in the world, to leave Cleveland and join the Miami Heat. Along with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, they formed a super team that would dominate the league. The Heat reached the finals in 2011, but lost to the Dallas Mavericks. But in 2012 and 2013, they won back-to-back championships, defeating the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. Riley, as team president, had built another dynasty. He now had 9 championship rings total, 1 as a player, 1 as an assistant coach, 5 as a head coach, and 2 as an executive. Pat Riley's career spanned 6 decades. He was part of 19 NBA Finals as a player, assistant coach, head coach, or executive. 25% of all NBA Finals from the start of his career through 2023. He finished his coaching career with 1,210 wins, 5th all-time. He had 171 playoff wins, 3rd all-time. His winning percentage of .619 over 24 seasons is among the highest in NBA history. In 2008, Riley was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. In November 2024, the Lakers announced they would honor him with a statue outside their arena, joining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Jerry West, Chick Hearn, and Elgin Baylor. Riley would be the first Lakers coach to receive the honor.
As of today, Riley remains the president of the Miami Heat, a position he has held for 30 years. He is 79 years old, still working, still competing, still striving for excellence. His legacy is not just in championships, though he has more than almost anyone in basketball history. It's in the way he transformed himself from a mediocre player into one of the greatest coaches and executives the game has ever seen. Riley understood something fundamental about success. It requires reinvention. He was Showtime in Los Angeles,
glamour and speed and entertainment. He was defense and physicality in New York, adapting to a different style, a different roster. He was culture and discipline in Miami, building a franchise from the ground up, then rebuilding it again with LeBron James. He wrote books about winning, Showtime in 1988, The Winner Within in 1993. He coined phrases that became part of basketball vocabulary. The disease of more, the idea that defending champions fail because everyone wants more money, more shots, more recognition. No rebounds, no rings. The emphasis on the unglamorous work that wins championships. Riley was demanding, sometimes harsh, always intense. He believed in hard work, in preparation, in leaving nothing to chance. He wore expensive suits because appearance mattered. He kept his hair perfect because image was part of leadership. He understood that coaching was about more than X's and O's. It was about psychology, motivation, ego management, and creating a culture where winning was not just expected, but inevitable.
Throughout his career, Riley coached some of the greatest players in basketball history. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Shaquille O'Neal, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. Each one was different. Each one had a unique personality and set of needs, but Riley found a way to reach them, to push them, to make them better than they thought they could be. He was known for his motivational tactics. Before Game 6 of the 2006 Finals, with the Heat facing elimination, Riley showed the team a video of the entire season, every practice, every game, every moment of struggle and triumph. At the end, he asked them a simple question: "Are you going to let this season end tonight?" They didn't. They won that game and Game 7, capturing the championship. Riley's influence extended beyond the court. He changed how coaches dressed, how they presented themselves to the media, how they were perceived by the public. Before Riley, coaches wore simple suits and stayed in the background. Riley made coaching fashionable, visible, part of the spectacle. He became a celebrity coach, his image as recognizable as the players he coached. But beneath the image, beneath the slick-back hair and designer suits, Riley was a student of the game. He studied opponents obsessively. He prepared meticulously. He adjusted his strategies based on personnel, always maximizing what his teams could do rather than forcing them into a system that didn't fit. That adaptability, that willingness to change while maintaining core principles of hard work and defense, is what made him great.
As the years have passed, Riley's place in basketball history has only grown. He is one of only a handful of people to win championships as a player, assistant coach, head coach, and executive. He is the only coach to win Coach of the Year with 3 different teams. He reached the finals with 4 different franchises. He coached in 3 different decades and remained relevant in a 4th and 5th as an executive. Pat Riley's story is one of transformation, of taking setbacks and turning them into opportunities, of refusing to be defined by limitations. He was a mediocre player who became a great coach. He was a fired broadcaster who became a champion. He was a Hollywood icon who succeeded in gritty New York and humid Miami. Everywhere he went, he won. And even now, in his late 70s, he continues to work, to build, to compete. The basketball world calls him the Godfather, a nickname that fits perfectly. He is respected, feared, admired. He built dynasties in multiple cities. He shaped the careers of dozens of Hall of Fame players. And when the history of the NBA is written, When the stories of the greatest coaches are told, Pat Riley's name will be near the top, a symbol of excellence, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of victory. 4 men, 4 different paths, 4 unique philosophies. Phil Jackson found peace in the chaos, building dynasties through surrender and trust. Gregg Popovich built a culture of family and fundamentals that lasted 3 decades. Red Auerbach created the blueprint for team basketball, proving that sacrifice and defense could dominate an era. Pat Riley transformed himself again and again, adapting to every challenge, winning in every decade. They are the architects of greatness, the quiet leaders who turned talented players into champions. Their legacies live not just in the banners that hang in arenas, but in the lessons they taught, the cultures they created, the lives they touched. Tonight, as you rest, remember their stories. Remember that greatness is built slowly, patiently, with vision and wisdom. And in that quiet understanding, may you find peace.